You're listening to the B&H Photography Podcast. For over 40 years, B&H has been the professional source for photography, video, audio, and more. For your favorite gear, news, and reviews, visit us at bnh.com or download the B&H app to your iPhone or Android device. Now here's your host, Alan Weitz.
Greetings and welcome to the B&H Photography Podcast. Today's guests are a pair of visual artists whose photographs, depending on where your heads are at, will make you either chuckle, squirm, blanch, or any combination of the above. And while it'll be easy to label their work as pure whimsy, the imagery they produce is deeper than it appears. Mitra Saboury is an LA-based artist whose work blends photography, video, sculpture, and performance. She works both under her own name as well as one of the collaborators of a creative entity known as Mitra. Blending playfulness with discomfort, Mitra's art explores the physical and psychological effects of lived environments upon their inhabitants. Mitra has held solo exhibitions in Birmingham and Wakefield, UK, Seoul, San Francisco, and Los Angeles. Most recently, her work has appeared at the Spring Break Art Fair in Los Angeles. Welcome, Mitra. Ben Zank describes his photos as being power struggles.
A power struggle.
Thank you. No fair, you cheated. You read the script.
It's also old.
It's old?
It's outdated, but it's fine. Just do it anyway.
Oh, okay.
What's outdated?
I like that there's no real
How's this?
information.
Ben Zank used to describe his photos as being power struggles, but not anymore. His images, often with himself as subject, portray being in control, being powerless, being struck, and being free again. But then again, that's what used to be, right? That's not anymore. Okay. This is metaphoric, of course, but also quite literal, as his subjects are often photographed beneath, behind, or otherwise incorporated into their respective environments. Ben seems to avoid explanations of his work, but it has been said in his self-portraits, the id, the ego, and superego appear to have metaphorically expanded, and the latent tension inherent to the images Zank creates reflect perfectly the inner emotional struggles of the artists. I couldn't have said it better myself. I'm going to read it again so I understand it now. Anyway.
Well, is that true, Ben?
Is it true? Come clean.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, then. Show's over.
Well, guys, welcome to our Hudson Yards broadcast studio here in the heart of Manhattan. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
You guys both have, as a basis to your work, there's a sense of humor to it. All right. Is that central to it, or is that just something that happened to work out? That's where it ended up going.
I'll go first. Yeah, sure. No, I mean, humor isn't the core aspect of like what I do, but it often finds its way into the images. And I mean, I like to think of myself as like a funny person, especially when I'm in a good mood. And I don't fight it. Like if there's humor in my images, that's great. Sometimes people look at images and I don't think they're funny and they start laughing. And sometimes I think an image is hilarious and no one gets it.
Those are the best jokes, by the way. When no one else gets them, those are usually the best
and
jokes.
Can you give an example of either?
Yeah, so this one image I have of a man with his face under like some road lines. Apparently when my dad saw that image, he was sitting at a table with my mom and he like spit out his like water when he looked at it laughing or something.
Is this the one where the fellow's sitting on the steps?
No, it's a different one, but it's a similar theme.
And you never thought that
I didn't think it was funny. I mean, I didn't really. Yeah, no, I didn't think it was like meant to be funny. But
what was the image? Can you describe it?
It's so it's I don't know, how do I describe it? So it's a road, and there are road lines, and they're not road lines. It's tape because there's a man
the yellow lines
with
in the
his
middle of
head
the road,
is under the road lines, and his body's like sticking up.
I've seen this image. Yeah.
Which series is that?
There's a whole. You've done several with
Call
with
it
the
Road Line series, if you will. But it's
no, but on your website.
On the website, it's called When Words Fail. Yeah.
Ah, okay, gotcha. All right, gotcha. Now, did your work start off with this? I'm not going to say humor because maybe that's the wrong kind of word. That you both kind of have this. There's a teasing whimsy about it, and you also tend to, especially with you, Mitra, push the limits of comfort, I would say. You really put people out of their comfort zones visually.
I think with that photo too, with Ben's photo, you could read into it as like the struggle of a man. And I think that in both of our works, we're kind of using laughter as a form of medicine, and it's like that really takes care of other issues. And there's different kinds of humor, there's different kinds of laughter, there's nervous laughter, there's uncontrollable, like belly laughter, and I think that I can see this in Ben's work as well. It's not necessarily the base of the work, but it's something to act as like an access point for people to get into the image in the beginning, and then kind of dig deeper and see the layers of.
And do you want people to laugh, whether it's nervous, or what kind of laughter would you like to provoke? Yeah.
Can we all just laugh?
Sure, I laugh right now.
Actually, let me ask you something a little more pointed about that.
Yes.
When you're working on a lot of these images that you're doing, is part of your end goal the reaction you're going to be getting from these people to watch them, say, at an installation or a show, and just watch their faces? Is that your payoff for this whole thing, or is that part of it equal to the creative aspect of it, of creating the art? Because I would imagine just watching people's reactions could be fun, especially if they're trying to interpret it, because that's probably one of the funniest things you could do is listen to people interpret your work.
Definitely. That's a great point. Really engaged with the audience, and especially now using social media more, there's a much more direct communication between the audience and myself. So though I can't necessarily see their facial expression in reaction to what they're seeing. And I'm curious how Ben uses social media as well, because it's a direct access to your audience, and you can engage with people in a very intimate way, because it's very personal, but it's very removed at the same time, because you don't really know what that person looks like. I think people are actually more honest online than in a gallery setting. Mm-hmm. I think they're less afraid to be critical, which is actually very helpful, and also positive too. I think that people allow themselves to be more vulnerable when they're behind their phone screen. Mm-hmm, so it does engage the audience in a different way.
Yeah, I have a question for you, Mitra. As you said, you find people to be more honest on the internet than in person at a gallery show per se. Your work is very. I think it's like, so it has before I say anything else about it, I guess it has a sense of this extreme vulnerability to it, or just it's so intense that it immediately strikes people at their core. So the response that they're going to give is, I would say, an immediate emotional reaction that might actually be outside of their own control. Whereas if they look at something like a painting or a color, they can control it. But when they see your work, they might not be able to control how they react to it. And is that why you find people to be more honest to you? I haven't looked at people's comments on your work, but
I think that when people become uncomfortable, they learn something about themselves, because assuming that they continue to live, they have to adapt to that discomfort and find comfort within that setting. So within that new setting, and whether that's physically being there or viewing a piece that makes them uncomfortable, or just having some kind of experience that's outside of what they are normally processing.
Would you guys say that there's a goal to some of your pieces? I mean, is there something that you would like for people to come away with?
No.
Nothing at all?
No.
Not at all?
No.
And what if somebody laughs at a piece that you found serious?
That's great.
That's great?
Yeah.
And what about the reverse?
It's great. It's all great.
It's all great?
Yeah, it's all great.
Okay. All right. So when you're creating a piece, is it ever necessary to kind of ask yourself, how is this going to be received? How is this going to be? Do you ever think twice about what's going to happen after it's put out there?
Absolutely. But I don't think I've made anything controversial enough where I really thought that at this time yet. Mm-hmm. I think for me personally, what I do is so interpretive. I don't really try to put meaning into it. it's just a visual interaction that I'm having with the environment at the time.
Okay.
And sometimes an idea that might pertain to a relevant event going on in society, it might happen, but most of the time I'm just reacting to my environment.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, I mean, I kind of find both of the work that you both do, whether it's Mitra or your personal work or Ben, your work, I mean, that there's humor in there, and I call that, I find that a good thing. Yeah, let's say you're out in process and you have an idea, and maybe it strikes you as whimsical, funny, I don't know. Does that affect the way you're going to go forward when you make the piece? I mean, do you think, okay, well, this was funny, and now I'm, 3 days into it and making it, and it's not so funny anymore. Does that come into play at all when you're thinking about your work?
Earlier on, when I was first just getting into photography, and when I actually first started pursuing photography as not just photography, but as an art, I was very focused on doing stuff that would appear as very serious or very dark. Like when I first started posting work to the internet, I did posts on Reddit would say, "This is my dark, surreal photography." I didn't want it to be taken humorous at all. I wanted it to be, considered very serious. Mm-hmm. And now when I do something, I don't really care at all. I recently shot in the desert and I didn't have many ideas, but I mean, one photo I did, I was wearing socks on my hands, and then I made a duplicate and I wore them on my head, or just, I didn't care how ridiculous it was. I think the more ridiculous, the better. And people might look at it and they might not laugh, but it's funny to me. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, as long as I'm having fun when I do it, it's fun. I
think it's a really good moment to let go of a work when it brings you joy as the creator.
Absolutely.
I really like to make work that I also am amused by.
Do you go back and look at some of your work and still get a chuckle? Or is it once it's past, it's past?
Yeah, some of it. If I'm far enough removed from it, I think now I can go back. I feel like you can view life with humor or with depression. Mm-hmm. Those are kind of the options. And so when you get an idea stuck in your head, you can work through it in one of those ways, and it's really valuable to be able to laugh at yourself.
Have there been any photographs or images that you've worked? This could be for either one of you also, that, again, were whimsical to start, but looking back on it, you realize it was kind of painful because, it's easy to laugh off problems and kind of joke about things that we don't want to deal with. And have either one of you found in a position where you're looking at this picture and go, no, that was really not a funny picture. I was really dealing with some heavy stuff back then and didn't want to deal with it, or anything like that? Yes. You got a chuckle out of that one.
Yes, definitely have been there.
Is that a nervous chuckle?
Yeah. So Derek Paul Jack Boyle is the other half of Mitra, and we've been working on that project since 2013, and it's been through some hard moments. We were in the Mojave for a little while in a motel, and we had, it was very different to living in LA, and I think neither of us expected it, and the work we made kind of reflected that time. And we're both proud of the work, but it was a hard time, and it was nice. It's nice that we have memories of it documented through these photographs.
Well, at the time, was what you were creating, were you finding humor in it? And looking back, do you still see that humor?
Oh, definitely, yeah. We were just taking aspects of our drab motel lifestyle and turning them into beautiful moments. Mm-hmm. So, there was one photo of a microwave where
with the silhouettes inside. That
yes,
one?
You've seen it. Nice.
Yeah, we actually looked at your work before the show.
Well,
who is this person you brought in?
Just happened to stumble on your page. It just happened to happen that way.
That was in a motel. There was this one with the ducks in the toilet that we posted recently.
Say no more.
It's the first picture on the site, actually.
Yes. Yeah.
The little environment that you created. Yeah.
Yes.
Little ecosystem.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
It's creating mini environments where you can get lost in within the bigger picture.
Using the space you have around you. Yeah.
We call that a salad bowl, right?
Quick question. This is more for Mitra, but I'm curious to see what Ben would say too. Is there some kind of set of core ideals or beliefs that you want to shine through your work? And if so, what are they?
It's a great question. I guess it's changing. This is what it is. Just being open to it, being open to change, being open to adapt, and I guess the core is self-reflection and honesty and being okay with making yourself vulnerable.
Have either of you guys changed your work a little bit based on some of the reactions that you've had?
That's a good question.
Like, for example, I mean, this is kind of part 2, and I started ahead of it. But, I mean, to me, it takes some kind of courage to put out work where you look a little silly or you're doing something that may be weird, and you want to get a deeper meaning through thisness. You want people to kind of see through it to find something a little deeper.
And you have to park your ego.
And and oftentimes the reactions may not be what you want. But does that affect you?
Absolutely. I think, I'm sure, Mitra, you can definitely agree with this, that you're always in constant struggle with yourself to step outside of your own comfort zone time and time again, because as an artist, people expect you to be original all the time. I recently actually got not a comment, but a private message on Instagram from someone who said that they are such a, huge fan, and they used to be inspired every day by what I did, but recently they felt like they could predict everything I did. And
there you go. You got a curator.
Yeah.
See?
I wouldn't say
That's true.
it's a harsh comment. I didn't reply because I don't know. I didn't know what to say to it, but I understood what they were saying. And I mean, I would say the reason I didn't reply is because I can't just change myself like that. It's something that I need to do slowly. Like,
this is one person's observation. And it's valid.
I know it myself. I think any artist, I think we all know it, that, sometimes we put ourselves in, dare I say, the brand box, where we're putting out work that people expect us to put out, or they expect to see this from you. And
why do you think the dog keeps bringing that Frisbee back? There's a dog bone involved in there. That's it. There's a treat.
What's the dog bone? What's the
It's a
dog
great
bone?
analogy.
What's the
What
dog
is a
bone?
dog bone?
Huh?
What is a dog bone?
Likes are the
Is
dog
it-
bone. Likes and followers. Yes, they are.
Are they? Are they
I
for
think
you?
so.
I don't. Are they for you? If it brought money, maybe. But like,
Oh, come on! If you put something out there and you get in 5 times the amount of likes you normally get.
from not that we're like big shots or anything, but from our perspective is, I think we've received the gratification enough times where it doesn't really do what it maybe used to do. Like, I will say, I'll be the first to say I was very excited when I got 100 likes on a photo. I was extremely excited when I got 1,000 likes. Now I don't really care. I mean, 20%, 30% of those likes are bots, and the other 30% are people who are just pressing like so you can look at their image. And then maybe, 30% are people who actually look at the work and care. So it's a small sample size of people who are actually paying attention. The comments themselves are also just people who are hoping that you will, respond and look at their work.
Well, what would be the bone? What do you want to get from your work?
Well, social media is an excellent tool for showing your platform. It's helped me, and it's helped many people. It's helped any artist these days. I mean, I couldn't imagine what it would be like, 20 years ago, 25 years ago, before the internet, to, make a living as an artist. You had to know the right people. Now you can just blast your stuff out on the internet and go viral. It's an excellent tool for promoting yourself.
25 years ago, either you had a gallery show or you painted the side of subway cars. That was your choice.
Precisely. And it's great. I love it, but I recognize that it's not the end all and be all to things. And something that I've struggled with is finding a way to remove myself from social media to a point where I can, operate on like a real world level in the, dare I say, the art industry, rather than just, throwing an image on Instagram and hoping that the right people see it. Because there's a lot more to.
Just separate of social media,
Yeah.
what is the desired goal? What is the desired reaction? I mean, you just said, 1/3 of what people say to you may count, the rest maybe not. How would you like people to react to your work?
Well, that's the thing is you want people to react positively, but I think you mostly just want people to react. I think if you were to imagine if you made something and it became extremely popular, and by extremely popular, I don't know, CNN said that what you did was heinous, or what you did was evil.
Wow.
But you still got the media attention.
You're getting clicks on that one for sure.
Yeah, you still get the clicks. It might not be positive, but you're still getting the attention. I mean, some artist might think that's great. I mean, I think a lot of people want, the positive reaction, and people want to hear the validation. They want to say, "Oh, I love this," but at the end of the day, you get that all the time. So it's refreshing to hear the honesty. As long as people are engaging with it, then I think that's great. And not everyone's going to want to engage with every artist's work.
Do you guys have do you have fun when you're making your work? Do you enjoy
Sometimes it's miserable, and sometimes it's fantastic. Mitra?
Do I have fun? Yes, I have fun. Yes, it is.
You didn't hesitate on that at all. There's a lot of hesitation in every other question. This one right for it.
It's a long process, but making a piece is a long process, but actually having a camera in my hands is the time that I feel the most relaxed. So in that moment, yes, it's extremely enjoyable. I do tend to rabbit hole a lot with editing. I get into my own little world with my computer, but it is. It's a cycle of emotion. Can we go back to talking about the value? Value of art, because that was an interesting point you brought up, Jason, about the likes and comments. The value of Instagram as a
social currency.
The value of instant validation.
Instagramification.
Instagramification. There you go. Yeah, that's it.
And how far that goes psychologically versus in the real world, where struggle is still very real, and thriving requires money, and these platforms are kind of feeding off artists in a way and not really benefiting us beyond a red
You're basically
icon.
feeding the beast is what you're doing.
Yeah,
That's the way I view
Let's throw
it.
this question. Let's say that the likes and comments actually paid you a royalty. Let's say every time someone liked your photo or made a comment, you got, I don't know, 5 cents or something. And then
That
eventually,
would-
would that make it more real for you? Or
I mean, I would be able to buy more food. Yeah, I think it's an important point.
I have
Is
to pay you in food. That'd be pretty good, right? Just send you something. in the
Another
mail.
option, yeah.
Well, another question is, have I know we're probably getting ahead of ourselves here, but do you eat the food after you're done using it in your images?
Yes, we eat every crumb Every crumb we step on has been through our bodies.
Well, what about the peanut butter and jelly hands? I want to know about that. Yeah.
Licked it off.
I think with
Goddamn
what Jason was saying though earlier too, in Mitra, this idea that you're putting your work out and you're not really getting a whole lot materially back from it. You're getting this sort of emotional thrill, maybe. But I feel like once you get to the point that you guys are both at, that you become a little bit jaded to the excitement of getting a like. But the other consequence of that is once your work is on social media, then it's out there and then other people start taking it and using it. So you kind of, as opposed to creating a photograph 20, 30 years ago where you create the work and it goes in a gallery and people see it through that medium, maybe they see it through a book or something like that. Now you create a work, it's on social media, and as soon as it's on social media, the expectation, I think, with anybody that's creating interesting work is that it's going to be stolen and used by somebody else.
That's
and,
nothing new,
and
by the
circulate
way.
in that sort of way.
Nothing
but I think
new.
it's more extreme now.
It's more extreme now, but I could tell you that before Days of the Net, when I was doing a lot of commercial work and my stuff was in magazines, 2 or 3 times a year I would find my photographs being stolen by other people. It could be from restaurant menus to...
I stole it a few times.
I was going to talk to you about that. But it's more. It happens more now, but...
And it was
it's
harder
nothing
to
new.
track them back then. When it happened, you would never know.
Yeah, essentially I would get a package in the mail, say, hey, I saw your picture. I thought you might be interested in this. And also you got to contact a lawyer. Yeah, but it's nothing new. It's just more so now.
So is that a concern when you're creating something for social media versus Mitra, you've done a bunch of installations with work, so it's a different sort of approach, I guess, but like having it actually in a gallery for sale versus having it on the internet to be approved or disapproved of by anonymous people on the internet?
Yeah, thinking of the audience as your curator online. You talk, Ben. Sorry. I need to think about this.
Well, does that limit what you create? Because I feel like once you get to a certain level where you're, as Ben was speaking of earlier, where your audience expects something from you, how much of a constraint is that putting on you as a creator? Are you not making things that you otherwise might have made because you're worried about that?
No, it's more like I respond to the audience. So I'll make a post of a video on my personal account. People will respond to it in whatever way. And then the next video will be in response to them. So it's like a direct dialogue that I'm having with them. I'm actually taking phone calls now from strangers on the internet.
I like that. But I do want to jump back a little bit to this idea of humor. And despite the fact that you both said, I do care, I don't care, it is funny, it isn't funny, you guys' works are funny. I mean, the stuff is amusing. I mean, it doesn't mean that there's not other deeper things going on, but I don't see how you can't say that when you look at some of this work that you don't get a chuckle. So I kind of just want to know, like, as you're creating this work, or maybe I'm repeating the same question, but how funny do you think it is? How do you guys work through this? Let's say, let's get back to the peanut butter and jelly and the hands. I mean, were you guys busting up when you were making this stuff? I mean, were you thinking about it? Were you thinking, okay, this is going to be funny? And then when you saw it out there, I mean, if say it wasn't your own piece and you saw that, would you react with humor? How would you?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. And Derek and I had a lot of fun making a lot of the pieces. It's important to not take yourself too seriously. I think laughing puts you more in the present moment too. Like you're more aware of your body and your senses and what's happening when you're just being amused by something. So
yeah, I think you said
important.
it well before earlier. It's kind of an entryway too. People will see it. I mean, I can speak personally.
Yeah.
You see something and you oh wow, that's funny, and then you take another look and then you think about it a little bit more, and then when you see the whole body of work and you see there's a lot of things like that. All right, then you dig in deeper.
Exactly.
So, I mean, it is
The
kind of an
basis
entryway.
of comedy, much comedy, is social commentary. Turn on any late night show, all the jokes. It's social commentary, and that's kind of like what you guys are doing in a different channel.
I think with laughter too, that sort of it's a visceral response. When you see something funny, you laugh before you think that you're laughing. And I think with some of your video stuff too, Mitra, you've shown me video pieces before that make me so uncomfortable I don't even want to watch them because it's this sort of visceral, like, ugh, like why are you doing that sort of thing where you can almost feel
what you're doing. And so I feel like that sort of pervades a lot of the different work, this sort of instant sort of strikes you immediately.
For example?
Like with the piece where you had the extended nails, where you're jamming the fake nail into the crevice of a floor, I think it was,
filing
right?
Filing it in the grout.
The grout in the bathroom.
Extremely uncomfortable. And I've never even had a manicure.
See, now I found that funny.
Good. Did it make you laugh, actually? Did you
no,
laugh?
it made me look away.
Not at all.
He hasn't been the same, actually. He's been showing up late every day.
I removed all my nails.
Did it make you laugh? Or did you...
Yeah, I was having a great time. I mean, I grew out my nails for the longest I've ever grown them. I think it was maybe 6 or 8 weeks. I mean, they were nasty. Those are all organic nails.
Oh, God. It's the worst.
Really?
It was difficult.
And what about the one where they're on fire on the keyboard?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Also real?
Yeah, those were acrylic. Those were melting plastic nails.
Yeah,
Burn my fingertips.
Serious dedication, if not.
I reshot that one so many times too. It's a process.
You just trying to get it right? Oh.
Yeah. Just torturing myself.
Okay, we're going to take a short break for traffic and weather. And when we come back, we're going to be talking more with Ben and Mitra. Stay tuned.
We hope you're enjoying this edition of the B&H Photography Podcast. Send us a tweet at BHPhotoVideo, #BHPhotoPodcast.
All right, Ben, so what's happening in the Cross Bronx Expressway as we speak?
So far, 2 taxis collided into each other. I got hit by 3 buses. Other than that, the traffic's flowing well. We made about $1.2 million at the toll, so it's going great.
There you go. All right, another day in the Big Apple. And Mitra, weather in the Big Apple. What is it today?
It is nice.
There you have it. Okay, we are back. John, you have a question.
Well, it's something I asked a bit earlier, and I hope I can get back to it here, which is, does it take courage to put this work out? Do you feel that it's hard? Are you taking a risk?
Yes.
Is it hard to put some work out?
Yes. Let me find this. I did answer that.
So have you ever not put out a work? Let's put it that way.
Oh, yeah.
That you really liked it, and you decided it's a little too much, or
I get ideas stuck in my head that I feel like I need to expel in a way. Like I get these ideas that I repeat over and over and over again. And so, yeah, it is difficult sometimes. I feel really vulnerable sometimes. Of course, a lot of them are sort of silly and some are embarrassing, and it's really not predictable how people will respond. And in that way, it's pretty daunting sometimes, but it's also really rewarding too, to throw yourself out there and see how it's received.
That feeling that you have, let's say you are a little not sure that you want to release it, or you feel it may be a bit embarrassing or whatever, and it's out there, and some responses are good, some are bad, and now flash forward 6 months. How do you still feel that same sense, or is it just all, now that it's out, it's all done, it's all good? Is that fair to say sometimes, that once you get it out there?
Yeah. Sometimes I go back and edit. Sometimes I will rework something, or moving it in a different context kind of changes it, and it can morph into something else.
I want to ask to maybe both of you the same question, though. This is, you have the moment of inspiration, you have this feeling that you want to get out, some idea, and then you go back to it, it comes back and forth. Can you talk about that time period between that moment of inspiration and when you finally decide, okay, I am going to put this out? And that may involve, many takes, going back, doing something over again, going back and forth. But how do you have to come to terms with that idea or appreciate that idea before you let it out? Does that make sense? If, let's say you have an idea for something, what sustains that idea to make it a final piece?
If I can pull it off. Unfortunately, a lot of the ideas that I get are, constrained by the laws of the land, really. very limited space to work with here in New York. I don't have a studio, and if I did have a studio, I probably wouldn't really want to use it anyway. I'd like working on location, and there's unfortunately a very limited amount of public space that you can access to create certain things, and the NYPD are very observant people, so they'll track you down. So a lot of the things that I do, I try to do them as quickly as possible. Sometimes I've been very fortunate to stumble upon these very fleeting moments of urban destruction, because the bureaucratic nature of the city is to fix everything as soon as possible. So if you see a crack or a hole, or there's construction going on, so there's poles or there's wires on the street, and there's this limited amount of time that you can use those as props or tools.
But is that often your moment of inspiration? You're out for a walk and you see something on the street that is broken and doesn't look right, and you're like, I got to get to that.
And the camera's always with you?
Oh God, no.
But these are these are things that take time. I mean, you come back to it. I used to bring the
camera with me everywhere. Now it's like, oh God, I can't bring it. It's heavy.
But some of the work that we're familiar with,
yeah.
Is it any of it been shot on site on that moment? Like, okay, you know what? I need to do that now.
If I have the camera with me, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
I remember speaking to you before where you were saying you were on a shoot, and it was sort of some of your compositions come out of chance encounters with you're walking around with in that case you have a model with you, you see something that looks interesting, and you make the shot kind of on the spot. So it seems very organic in that sort of context, maybe.
Yeah, 100%. And just going back to the whole creation process, I would say like one of my biggest regrets of like not getting an image was last year there was this phenomenon where a manhole was overflowing with water, and it was like that for 2 weeks, and I waited like a week and a half before I went and purchased a crowbar to get the manhole off, and then I was gonna do an image where I would submerge myself in the water. And when I finally I had my friend come with me to help me pull it off, because manholes are pretty heavy, and it was in the middle of the street. It was it's a summer day, so there's a lot of people walking around. I got the manhole off, and the water just it started flooding the entire street. Like it was just an insane amount of water. Like it literally, like almost a geyser.
Oh my God.
And someone like walked by and they're like, you be careful, you get electrocuted in there. And like immediately I was just like, I don't want to die for this. Like I want this photo, but I really don't want to die right now. Like maybe another time. So I put the manhole back on.
So there is a limit to your commitment, is what you're saying.
There's a limit.
Oh, okay.
But the saddest part is that I thought about it for a week, and I mean, not 2 days later, they fixed it. It was gone, completely gone. And that's the nature of the city. Is
have you thought about recreating some of these things?
If I see it again, I will do it.
But how about just recreating it, like building it yourself, trying to figure something like that out? Is that part of the process? I mean, would that make it your work? Or?
I always thought about that. Like I've talked to people about getting budgets for creating a set. I don't want to go ahead of myself, but like an artist that I'm very fond of, Alex Prager, she makes these very huge sets, and she works with almost hundreds and hundreds of extras to create these tableaus. And I think about doing that stuff, and then it just the creativity there, or rather just there's no limits. If you have a budget and you can just make whatever you want, there's no limits. And to me, that's boring. The excitement is for like creating the excitement is like not knowing what the day will give me. Like stumbling upon something that wasn't there a week before and won't be there next week, and I can only get that image in that small amount of time is very exciting to me, and it makes it special in a way. Like maybe the image itself might be not that great, but the fact that like this thing that happened will never be there again. It's
And
really cool.
Very
what about the
different
idea?
kind of street photography.
Yeah, totally. But what about
yeah.
the idea of doing it yourself? Does that give you that similar? I mean, I know you have a partner or a friend or someone that's helping you along, but generally this is you and the world, and that's about it. Yeah, is that part of the thrill?
Yeah, I mean, it's extremely stressful and sometimes it sucks a lot. And actually the times where I've had like one or two people helping me, the images come out like remarkably better.
Well,
like
how's it stressful? I mean, it sounds like, again, this goes back to my question. I mean, is there fun in the process? Are you enjoying yourself? Are you getting a kick out of it?
Yeah, sometimes it's really fun. Sometimes I know what I'm doing and I'm not like working against the clock or I'm not like stressed out that I'm going to get in, because I work very publicly. Sometimes I don't want to like travel to, XYZ remote location. I want to just like shoot on like, I go to like dead ends, like right across the street from me. And, sometimes the police come and I don't like people like intruding on me, even though it's a public space. I don't like being intruded on. I get anxious about it.
And what if you just said, okay, you know what? I'm not going to do that one. I'll wait till another day and do another one. Is that possible?
I would like to think that it is, but I just kind of forget. Yeah,
I guess I asked that, and this goes back to what Mitra said earlier, this need to get something out off your chest or something out, this idea, and I can see how that could create stress if you take it important.
For me, it's not like this one idea, but rather just a need to like produce something at that time. Like if sometimes, very rarely, it happens and it's great when it does, do I have like a very, specific goal in mind? And I may, take, greater steps to accomplish that. But most of the time, there's just that gut feeling that you need to get out there and like make something.
It's interesting. You just to go back on one thought you have. To me, one of the most electrifying parts of the creative process is when I'm in the midst of working and I hear the police approaching and pulling out their guns. That to me is that is the moment for me.
It's funny.
Actually, on a more serious note, we're talking a lot about fine art here and creating artistic pieces and stuff like that. What about commercial work? Because I could see each of you doing work that could very easily be used editorially and commercially, especially like medical and psychological stuff. No joking around. Especially your pictures, I look at them and I could see these being photo illustrations for stories about all kinds of medical conditions and stuff like that. Yeah. Have you tapped
health
that?
Insurance? Yeah, great. Yeah, lots of money in that. Sounds great. Love plugging it in. Love to do that kind of stuff.
No, seriously, your stuff is just, again, it's clean. It would be easy to drop text onto, even though, of course, photographers don't want to know about text going on their pictures. Yeah, but you do have a lot of open spaces that would just lend themselves to editorial or advertising kind of work.
Sure.
Have you approached them?
I don't. That's, well, going back to like myself as, someone who has gotten popular on social media, like I'm not that fluent in real world marketing. Unfortunately, and just cold calling these businesses is not what I like to do. I personally like to sit back and it's not. I don't recommend it to anyone, but I like to sit back and wait for people to come to me. And if they don't, then I'll just like find something to pay the bills in between. But I like to play by my terms. I've been very fortunate in terms of commissions and commercial work coming to me where they sort of buy into my.
So you do have commercial work.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And
all right.
I know. And once again, I've been very, very fortunate that these brands that have reached out to me have wanted to. They want to do what I do. Like they're very excited to just have me do whatever, and that's great. I think I did one job where they're like, and it was like my idea was like with the road line thing. It was like for a car company. They're like, this is what you're going to do. I'm like, okay. And it was very crazy experience. I was up till 9 a.m. like talking to a guy in Germany trying to get this done. It's not fun, but it's necessary sometimes.
Oh, no, it's okay. Plus they give you a satchel of cash afterwards. It's beautiful. So,
Yeah, Euros. Yeah. Euros
what
are
about
great.
yourself? Have you been doing any commercial work, or have people approached you?
Yes, people have approached Mitra. We did an ad for Gucci once. That was a lot of fun to do.
Okay.
They're really great arts advocates. They work with a lot of artists, which is really nice. Yeah, it's something I'm not closed to as long as I really feel comfortable with the brand and support the brand and their mission.
Even if they offered you a big bag of cash? Come on now.
It hasn't happened yet.
But if it
so-
did,
What would be the ideal venue for your work? I mean, if you could just kind of fantasize a bit as to where your work would be in its highest locale.
Big gallery with some big white walls.
All right. Same?
No, no, but I don't.
oh, okay, what color walls do you want? Okay.
I don't know. That's a great question, actually. The ideal venue. I mean, I'm. This might sound kitschy, but I'm actually really enjoying Instagram right now. So
And are you scaling your
Yeah.
works accordingly? I mean, do you think about where it's going to be seen, or it's going to be seen on Instagram and make a difference as opposed to being an
Yes.
installation or a video on a wall?
yeah, definitely. Yeah,
How so?
I keep the videos short for now because I know attention span is definitely a factor. In terms of the content, I am asking people questions and they're responding. Where in
Engagement factor.
engagement is really nice. Where in a gallery context, it would be more difficult to do that.
This is just me like complimenting you a bit, but like I think your work is so strong that it doesn't matter if it's shown big or small, that the message is just so clear either way. Like I could imagine some of the meat wreck images like being printed, I don't know if you have, but being printed, 40 by 40 or larger, and they would look amazing. But even just seeing them on my 2-inch screen that has a home button, they're still really powerful.
Thanks. We did a couple of residencies. We were with this gallery called Alterspace, which is now working with et al. They're a really great space in San Francisco, but we did a show there and printed photographs, and it was definitely an experience to see them tangibly visible because we hadn't done it before then. But again, the audience is different and the impact is different because of that.
Do you both use your own bodies for most of the work, or is it a combination of models and friends and other people? And how does that change when it's got to be your own body?
It's like 80% of the photos are myself.
And okay.
I would say like if I'm working with a friend or a model, yeah, most of the models really are just like now my friends because we work so often together, so we just become like good friends. It's different, yeah. I would say that, I mean, with all due respect to the my friends and models, the work that I create, like where I'm the subject, and it's not really, I don't like to consider them self-portraits. I mean, they are at the core a self-portrait because it's me in them, but I don't like to envision it being like myself, and it's just I'm using myself as a subject. I just connect more with them because I think that there's a level of physical narrative that is really important to what I do, and as hard as I try with like the people I work with, it doesn't always translate. A lot of the people I work with are extremely talented, either like art models or dancers, and they're very trained in certain ways, whereas I am just trying to express a certain type of feeling, and it can, in a way, it can be like very awkward or imperfect, and I think there's like a beauty in that.
I agree.
And
yeah.
I mean, I don't want to be like narcissistic, but like I like it.
You got a
better.
bitch and bod. Okay, I hear you.
Well, how many attempts does it take to make some of those images?
Yeah,
if
that
you're like
was
doing a
nice.
self-timer or setting up for
Yeah,
yourself.
can you walk us through a little bit, like the process, not just with the self-timer and the aspect, but you have this idea you go back and you set up. How many days might it take? How many? You know what I mean? Just kind of walk us through a general idea, and then talk camera process.
Some images can take 15 minutes to edit, and some can take several hours. I mean, honestly, the really tedious images can take a very long time. They're not. I wouldn't say they're like extremely hard digital editing feats.
Not so much editing. I'm talking is actually the shooting.
Yeah. What's funny is that I didn't shoot for a long time. The last time I shot was like when I went into the desert, the Mojave Desert. Maybe I ate at some of the places that you guys were living off of. But I recently went out and shot, and I left a zipper in my camera bag open, so the remote timer that I connect to my camera fell out, and when I got to location, I was without it, so I had to use the 10-second timer, and actually found that it wasn't, besides that I had less material to work with in the end, it wasn't any different than, when I had this remote timer that I would program to take, like 100 images, and I wouldn't have to go back to it.
Well, I would imagine there's logistical concerns too when you're making a photograph of your type in New York, where you're setting up your camera on a tripod and then you're putting yourself in a completely ridiculous position where it's not like if someone walks by and just grabs it and runs, you're not going to be able to just hop down, Oh
yeah, I'm not worried about anyone stealing the camera. I mean, I always feel like more comfortable when I have someone else with me. It makes things just seem like more like official, and like, it makes things seem safer. Sometimes, I may have the camera like in a place where people can't see it. Yeah. And then it literally looks like there's like some weird shit going down. Like, seriously, I've just like had the camera like off to the side, and then I went and like laid down in the road, and there were like cars, and I would have to like immediately get up. And I mean, I don't know what these people are thinking, but there's a guy, lying down on the road. Like, is he trying to, end himself? Like, these are questions that, like they're almost like performance pieces for these random strangers. Like, what is this person doing? Especially when they don't see the camera. Yeah. I try to leave the camera as in view as possible, but sometimes that's just something that that happens.
And what do you think about like the standard photographic techniques of lighting and composition, and how much, composition clearly is pretty important, but how often do you think about that stuff? And let's say if something's underexposed, overexposed, are you going to worry about that too much?
The thing that I think about most is just the weather. The weather is a really important factor to me. I always work with natural light, and I like to shoot on overcast days because I just like the images to have an all-around like balance to them. Mm-hmm. I find that like when the certain overcast, or just like not or the end of the day, not necessarily like that golden hour, but just when the light is soft and it sort of puts the image in an environment where you can't always like place like what's going on. It almost seems like it isn't where it should be. Rather like if you shoot like on a 70-degree sunny day in the middle of the day, you're like, oh, it's 70 degrees out and sunny. Right. But if you shoot, on like a 70-degree and cloudy day, and the light is just in that place, you don't know if it's inside or outside. Right. And also, I I'm very shameless about, saying that I do like to do photo editing. Like I spend a lot of time in Photoshop. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. Not a traditionalist or Puritan in any way.
Mitra, what about, can I ask you a little bit about like your camera setups and what you use, and do you change for whatever projects you're working on, or is it just whatever?
Yeah. With Mitra, Derek and I use a Nikon D800, and with my own personal work, I use a camcorder. Mm-hmm. It's a Sony. Should I give the model name?
If you want to. I don't really care. What's her name? I don't know. And what about lens choices? Does that come into play, or you just use basic standard lenses? Do you change for
We have a fixed, we have a zoom lens and a fixed lens. Yeah, depends on the subject matter, definitely.
I used to use the 51.4 all the time. That was the only lens I used. And then I ended up getting a 24-105 4L lens of a Canon. And that's like literally the only lens I use now. Okay. It's great.
And
what is it about that you preferred over the 50? I'm just curious.
When I first got into photography, I was obsessed with the bokeh or the bokeh. I was everything
bokeh.
Had to
It's
be
bokeh.
Sure. Everything had to be 1.4. The background had to be blurred, and now I need everything to be in focus. Like I can't have anything out of focus.
Interesting. And Mitra, I know with Meetrek you collaborate, but do you work with other people regularly on your own projects? Do you have assistants? Or is it mostly?
No,
is
it's
the point
all
to
me.
be you?
I am open to collaboration. I do enjoy working by myself. I think I can I really rabbit hole when I'm working. So I'll record a sentiment, I'll audio record a sentiment, and then kind of think of the best way to convey it. So a lot of the work is just with me and the camera and just thinking and writing a lot. And then, using my own body because I can manipulate it in whatever way that I want.
Have you tried to work with a model and explain what you'd like
I've worked with a couple of people, and I enjoyed it, but I feel like I can't tell them exactly what I would like them to do because it's often too much. Yeah. So and also I enjoy working through these things and processing them myself. Yeah. Ideally my body would be disposable and I could
clean it off, get another one. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, but I put myself in kind of precarious settings. It's a personal challenge for me to do, which is why I use my body. We're
kind of getting close then, but I want to get back to a question I've asked a few times in maybe different forms, but this idea of kind of sustaining an idea from that moment of inspiration until it's a done deal. Can you talk about that a little bit in terms of what will sustain it? I mean, if it takes days, weeks, whatever it happens to be.
I think timing is really important and not giving up on a piece until I feel like it's the right moment to release it. So a lot of things kind of have to come together in one moment. So there's one video that I did where I say, do you like instant gratification or would you rather earn it? And I worked on that piece for so long, it became kind of a paradox. I am applying lipstick onto my mouth, and as I'm saying, do you like instant gratification? It goes onto my teeth, and then I eventually eat the lipstick, as in I'm earning it. I shot this piece maybe 12 times over the course of a month, and each time I shot it, something would change slightly, and then I would watch it again and think, how can I make this a better version of itself? And it wasn't until I felt fully satisfied by it where I released it. I think that moment of truth and honesty when you let go of a work is really important, and that kind of determines when I let go of a piece.
Would it bother you guys if somebody laughed at a piece or laughed with a piece that you never intended to be funny?
No, that wouldn't bother me. I would enjoy that.
Okay.
Any audible response is very welcomed. Right. Yeah.
Okay. I think I know your answer, but you can...
I think I would find it hilarious that someone found something hilarious that I didn't find hilarious.
We can end on that.
Okay, we are wrapping up another fine show. Guys, any opening shows, things coming up, publications?
I was just invited to a residency in Copenhagen which will be for 3 months.
Wow, that's nice.
Yeah,
Great.
I will be living in
Wow.
Copenhagen.
When's that?
It's next spring, summer.
That's incredible.
And yeah, I'm going to be making a film. So that will be exciting, like a longer film with a little girl, a 2-year-old girl, 3-year-old girl now, who is named Mitra.
Really?
It will be totally surreal. Yes.
Sounds great.
Yes.
So if people want to see your work, your websites and Instagram, Ben, yours is?
You can find me at www.benzank.com, or you can go on Instagram at benzank, Zank.
Okay. And Mitra?
You can find me on Instagram. It's Mitra.
Mitra?
Medication.
Okay, one word. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Good stuff. All righty. And also, all of these addresses will be on the B&H podcast website and the B&H Facebook group page, which is now up and running with hundreds of members. A lot of people joining up. If you're not a subscriber to the B&H Photography Podcast, head on over to Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Stitcher, Overcast, or Spotify. And you can always find us on the B&H Explorer website and the B&H Photography Podcast Facebook group page, and tell them Al sent you. For now, on behalf of Jason, Cory, John, and myself, thank you so much for tuning in today.
Hi, we're alone now. I just wanted to say, don't be afraid to make yourself vulnerable, because it can really feel empowering. Hi, we're alone now. I just wanted to say, don't be afraid to make yourself vulnerable, because it can really feel empowering. Hi, we're alone now. I just wanted to say, don't be afraid to make yourself vulnerable, because it can really feel empowering. Hi, we're alone now. I just wanted to say, don't be afraid to make yourself vulnerable, because it can really feel empowering. Hi, we're alone now. I just wanted to say, don't be afraid to make yourself vulnerable, because it can really feel empowering.